G'day and welcome to the Grow Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Peter Gartlan from Gartlans IT Advisors, based in beautiful Hobart, Australia, where I am based. Thanks for your time today, Peter.
No worries, mate. Yeah.
Let's start with how we know each other. Through a mutual friend of ours, Mick Dennehy. I've known him for 3 or 4 years.
Yes, I've known him for a lot longer than that. He was my next door neighbour in 1977 in Sandy Bay. Yeah,
oh, right.
We played backyard cricket together. I taught him how to play table tennis.
Oh, right.
Telling everybody, he became state table tennis champion thanks to my table tennis table.
Did he? I did not know that.
He denies that, but I know that. Yeah.
I did not know that. Well, he loves his cricket, so I can see where he's gotten that from.
Yep.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, the business I'm talking about is the former business. So I'm at the moment I'm out of that business that I'm talking about today. And it's but the business I was in was an IT services, was products and services provider in Tasmania, and we provided kit or as in computers and servers and networking stuff and everything to Tasmanian corporate and government clients and that it was a business that we had from a while ago. It was 96 and we sold it off in about 2008. So we had some fun times, like, Y2K and all that sort of stuff, which was big for IT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
And how did you start out?
So my history, so I've lived and worked in Tasmania all my life, which is pretty sort of unusual in itself. But I started just as an IT guy out of uni, worked in a few just providing IT support stuff. And actually, the first big plunge I took was when I was working in a local company, Australian Newsprint Mills, which basically makes all the newsprint for all the newspapers around Australia. And we used to buy our stuff from a company, buy our computers and stuff from a company called Sleeves in Hobart, which has a great name, rolls off the tongue like a brick. Sleeves. Yeah. Anyway, Alan Sleeves thought it was a great name because it was his company.
Yeah.
So we used to buy stuff from them, and then at one stage they had an opening for a sales guy, and I always thought in my business I was always fairly or relatively ambitious. I was always keen to sort of work out what's next. After I left uni, I had 3 jobs in the first 2 or 3 years, I think. And so I'd been working in IT support and realised I think the money's in sales. Decided the money was in sales. And so I asked them if they had any sales jobs. And I thought it was interesting because I thought at the time, I always thought I've got to, at some stage, I'm going to have to try sales because everyone has a bit nervous about sales because it's commission based and you've got to take a hit to your salary. You sort of drop your salary, but you've got all the upside potential with your commission. And I was a fairly young IT guy at that stage, 22, 23, pretty young. And I had made one very smart decision at that time, which I was pretty proud of in retrospect, was that I took the leap. I thought, I've got to give sales a crack at some stage. I might as well do it now when the dip is least, right? So if you go too long in a business, you end up sort of moving up the ranks. And I don't know how I knew this at this stage, but I thought you move up the ranks a bit, you'll end up in the golden handcuffs. The hit will be too big to drop down and try the sales and to go on the commission side, and the risk side is going to be too much. So I did have a crack at sales. I thought I'd give it a go, and if it works out, then I know I've done the right thing. And if it doesn't work out, then I haven't lost too much on the corporate ladder. So I gave it a crack, and that first year I think I made double in my first year what I'd been making as an IT support guy.
Wow.
In sales. And I thought, oh, this is pretty good. So it was a good start. And so then I worked in that business, and we did a lot of business in Tasmania, just with local corporates, and this is early days in PCs and things. There weren't even servers much in those days. It was all just PCs and laptops and printers and all sorts of stuff like that, and just fixing them and all that sort of thing. But quite a bit of demand, not a lot of companies around. I worked in that business with another guy who was a fantastic bloke, William Lowe, his name was, and he was the manager of that business. And he'd come into that business pretty recently. He'd actually been an accountant, and then he was he was working for Price Waterhouse in Melbourne, and then he came back to Tasmania and he set up a restaurant. He ran a restaurant.
Yep.
A restaurant called the Golden Bamboo, and he thought, oh, this is pretty good. And he did that for 5 years, and then he thought, I might try IT. So he went and did a course at TAFE in IT and came back and ended up running this. And then he came and worked in this business, and they had a lot of staff leave in a short time. Alan Sleeves had a bit of a staff problem. And so he looked around, he said, oh, William, you've run a business. How would you like to run this? So 6 months into this business, William's running it. And then he said to me, can you come on and work with me? And I'd never done sales at all before. So it was quite a bit of a risky start. But one thing we had a lot of, well, in some ways we had naivety, but really all we had was we just have to work hard, right? We just got to work hard and win people's confidence. And it was a small business really, in a small pool as well. So we built that up over the next 7 or 8 years, and we did quite well. We did a lot of business with government, built up the name of this company quite well. And then we decided what's going to happen next. So we realised that we were actually doing in Tasmania in this company. This was a Melbourne-based business. Alan Sleeves was a Melbourne operator. So we went to Alan and we said, and we talked as well. We had a Launceston business as well in this business, in this operation. The three, William and myself and the guy at the Launceston office, we approached Alan Sleeves and said, hey, Alan, we'd like to buy your Tasmanian operation, please. Because we think it's going quite old. With Alan's getting old, he's going to retire. And Alan said, well, yeah, okay, how about this much? And we thought, oh, actually, we were thinking about this much.
Yeah.
Right? So that didn't happen. So we all walked off and thought, what are we going to do next? And then the next step is, well, what do we do? We're obviously got to work out what we're going to do next. So William and I decided, well, we can start our own business, which is a big thing to do in any business, starting from scratch, no revenue, no nothing. And we thought that's going to be tricky. And we made a lot of our money in this business out of this government contract, which we're on, which was a panel contract. There were a number of providers on this contract. And so we were one of about 8 or 9 providers on this contract, and Sleeves at the time was the largest provider. So we were the biggest supplier into government on that contract. Now, the smallest provider on that contract at the time was a company called Comstra, which had been set up out of the leftovers of another business, which had split up into 2 arms. And that was a business that I actually used to work in many years before. One of my first jobs out of uni was in that business for about 6 months or 10 months. And I knew one of the guys in there. And so I'd said to William, well, hey, there's this other business in here. We've got to we need to be able to go and talk to our customers, right? We need to go and see all these customers again, and they've got to want to buy from us. So we need to have a product to sell them. We needed to have sort of a tier 1 product. And our tier 1 product those days was, there was Compaq, there was HP, there was IBM, there were these sort of brands that we wanted to be able to sell. So we needed to get one of those. That was the other reason we couldn't start up, because we didn't have access straight into those brands. So we approached, we knew that this other more Comstra, even though they were doing nothing really in business terms, they were the smallest supplier on the contract, but they had an IBM dealership. And we had been doing a lot of business in our contract with Compaq, and Compaq was a good brand and everything. So we needed something like that. So we approached Peter Gartlan and said, hey, you're working in that business. Now, he was working with another guy who was a very retail-focused guy who we weren't really interested in. So we said to those guys, hey, how about we join up with you guys, but the other guy, you can leave, we'll buy you out, and we'll stick with Peter Gartlan, this other guy. So that's how it worked out. So we bought into this business, and so we start, and then it was quite interesting. I'm probably jumping around on your list here a bit, but I'll keep going. So it was quite interesting because we bought into this small business and we went to see all our customers, all these customers who knew us really well, all these government agencies that we dealt with, all these corporates we dealt with, and we said, "Hey guys, we've left Sleeves now, and we're over here. So here we are." And they said, "Oh yeah, that's great." I said, "Oh, good on you. Well done, setting up your own business. That's great. I look forward to seeing how you go and everything. And good luck."
Yeah.
Right. No orders.
No.
No orders. I said, "Oh well, hang on, but Sleeves is still here. They're the biggest kid on the block. Why are we going to suddenly change and how are we going to justify it to our CEO or whatever to go and start dealing with you guys when you've got no one? You've been here for 5 minutes. Yeah, we know you guys, but there's nothing." So it was like, oh shit. So we had the business which this business we're in. So we had Peter Gartlan, who was already there. Now, he didn't do much government business, but he did a bit of corporate business. So he had a lot of business with the IBM stuff, dealing with the corporate clients around Hobart, which was good. It was relatively stable. It was really small, and that business at the time was actually making a loss. So we took a big punt buying into a business which was actually making a loss, buying out one of the guys, buying in with basically no one, going to our customers, and they all said, "Good luck," you know. And I was like, I had a couple of sleepless nights over that, because it was like, oh, geez, we've just put our, you know, we've bought a business, we've set up, we've left this other one which had really good cash flow and really good customers and really good business going on, and now obviously they're cranky with us. So Alan Sleeves immediately sued us, right?
Oh, geez.
Because he said, "Oh, you're taking all my customers and you're stealing all this and stealing all that and all sort of stuff." So he sent the lawyers' letters to us, and so, oh, geez, got that too. So it was a bit rough early on, and we didn't have a lot of income initially. So it was a case of we didn't pay ourselves for a while in that business. We had we moved in with Peter Gartlan, and he had about 3 or 4 people in there at the time. Now, we'd left a business where we had about 20, I think, and we had no customers. So we just thought, all right, what are we going to do? And that was quite tricky. Now, over time, we did all right. We just steadily built up. In fact, what we did first off was quite interesting. So on this panel, there's all these suppliers on this panel. One of the other people on the panel was another supplier of Compact, which was one that we did a lot of business in. People don't like chopping and changing brands much. They like to stick with the brand they're working. This is the customers. So they don't like to having sort of lots and lots of different brands in place in their business, in their operations. So they generally like to stick with one. So we wanted to help them to stick with one. Oh, that was another interesting thing. So we had a good relationship with the Compact people in Melbourne, our managers, our partner managers in Melbourne, and we did more business with them than actually our operation in Melbourne did. The Tasmanian branch was quite big, so we went over to see the sales manager, basically out of the partner manager in Victoria, and we sat down with him and he said, "Oh, look, we're just letting you know we've actually left that business now. We're setting up our own new business." And that guy said, "Well, you're the only people I know in that business, and I'm getting $4 or $5 million a year out of that business in Hobart, which is good for my number. So that's a big problem." He says, "Where are you going?" And we said, "Oh, we're going over to this other mob that sell IBM," which I even thought was worse because that's their big competitor. So he said, "Oh, well," and we thought he was going to say, "Oh, see you later, good luck," you know. Yep. And he said, "Well, it sounds like we'll have to move fast." Right. So he said, "We'll set you up with a Compact dealership." We said, "Fantastic," which was more than we expected at the time. So we got the fastest Compact dealership in Australia at the time. It took 3 months, but we got through with it. And that was interesting too, because that big part of that was they were very conscious of the fact that we had the revenue generating potential of $3 or $4 million even just at the start. And we had, so their people needed security, right? Because they got basically, and this is another part of this questions you're going to ask me about, which is how do we fund our business? Now, we basically funded our business through our supply credit lines. In fact, when we first turned up in the business at the start, we said to Peter, "Okay, so how are you funding the business?" He said, "Oh, we've got a line of credit with the bank," and they weren't turning over much. They were turning over, I think, under $2 million at the time when we joined up with them. And he said, "Oh yeah, we haven't got much." We said, "Well, we better go and see the bank because we need a bit bigger credit line so we can start." Before we had lined up these suppliers, so he said,
Let me guess. The bank computer said no.
The bank, we've had this lovely guy at the bank who I know quite well, and now he's a guy I see around because this is Hobart, so I see him all the time. And he said, "Peter," we all came to see him, and he said, "We want to talk to you about our credit limit." And he said, "Oh, that's interesting because I wanted to talk to you about that as well."
Oh no.
we said, "Oh, we want to talk to you about raising it." And he said, "Oh, that's interesting because I wanted to talk about lowering it." Shit. So we had a chat with him anyway. We convinced him not to lower it initially. And anyway, we thought, well, that's a bugger. So we're not going to go anywhere with the bank at the moment because I'd seen his business losing money and not really going far. But he said, "Oh, well, we'll see how you guys go." And so we kept going. So it was a lot of it was about how do we fund our business in the early stages. Funding growth. You hear about businesses growing too fast. I always thought it was interesting to hear people say businesses growing too fast. Because doesn't that mean you've got so many sales you don't know what to do? And if you've got lots of sales, how can that be a problem for, how can that be a problem for this? But it's all about cash flow, as everyone probably watching this video knows.
Yes.
That you can have great sales, but if you haven't got the payments coming through, and you haven't got the staff to keep you going, and you haven't got the goodwill of your suppliers to give you lines of credit, so that they have to pay in advance, which is what a lot of them said initially. No worries, guys. Yeah, you want to buy $1 million worth of stuff? That's fine. Just send us $1 million to our bank account, and we'll let you have $1 million worth of stuff.
There's a lot of profitable businesses that go under because they haven't managed their cash flows.
That's right.
War sometimes.
Right. Now we had a fantastic. This guy Peter Gartlan was out. So when we started this business up, there were the three of us, Peter, William, and I. So we sort of nominally said, okay, well, William's going to. So we need someone to sort of be the face of the business, and we're all basically equivalent level on the business, but we needed someone to sort of represent the business in a sort of legal capacity, or whatever you like to call it. So we said, okay, William's going to be the CEO, right? Which worried Peter a bit. We found out afterwards, because he goes, oh, these two guys are coming in, bought into my business. There's two of them, one of me. They're going to cut me out. Right? So he was like, oh shit. But Peter was a lovely guy. William. Now the other good thing about this, which is worth pointing out, is that a big part of the success of our business was that we all got on really well, right? We all got on really well. We liked each other. We were all had equivalent sort of risk appetite
and work ethic.
Very important. Very good. A good work ethic. Trusted each other, and so that is absolutely key within this business. But having had three people working in the business was one of the biggest pluses, I think, because I tell people a couple of things about this. One is you got to be able to have time off in your business, right? I mean, sole operators. I don't know how someone would be able to do this on their own. I really look back and think, gosh, if that was just me, it wouldn't have happened. And because I think I couldn't just be 24/7 in a business, and you have to be really in that. But with three of us, we decided early on that the two of us can run the business, right? Two of us can run the business, and one of us can go away for up to 3 weeks. And when we go away, we could do that. We did that regularly. We would have one of us out of the business on holidays or something like that, and we could just be away. We go, don't have to worry about it. I can trust those guys. They'll make decisions that I agree with. We always had good vibe with each other. We never had any issues about how we'd run. So that's absolutely key, to have someone working with you, I think, in a business that you can trust and you can leave the business to, and has got the same incentives as you. Not a manager, unless you've got a really good manager, because the manager doesn't carry the can if the business goes down, right? He's not the one that the liquidator comes to for money, right?
Yes.
So he's not the one who gets that. So a manager is different to someone who's got a stake in the business. So that was really key. And we basically had a marriage, right? It's like a marriage. You're with these guys as much as you're with your partner anyway. So we basically had a marriage, and we got on very well, and it was a very, very successful marriage. So that was really good. So that's a big plus for I think that was one of the biggest factors in terms of the success of our business, was the fact that we had three of us who were equally motivated we had the same sort of focus on it.
Yeah, it's really, really important, those three things you just said. Let me go back. One of the things I say is I believe recruitment's the most important thing a manager does, and you take that up a level to the owner of the business. That includes recruiting your fellow business partners and shareholders. You need people that are aligned, as you said, with the risk profile, trust, you like them, and also the work ethic. And I've had 30 business partners now and 15 businesses across 3 countries. So I've seen a lot of shit and picked some bad business partners, but obviously I've had some golden ones in there as well. And getting that right, from day one can make a huge difference.
Oh yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we nominated ourselves with different roles. So William was the CEO. I was the sales manager and sort of sales and marketing, and Peter Gartlan was the CFO, right? So he ran the finances. Yeah. Now, Peter was brilliant at running finances. Now, the other good thing about this business is these other two guys particularly, I mean, I'm quite happy to work in. I'm happy to get up in front of an audience. My big plus in our sort of trio was I was always the mouthpiece at a presentation or an event. I was the one who always spoke first. I was the one who stood up in front of crowds. That was my bit. William was the consummate gentleman. He's absolutely exquisitely polite, good manners, really nice guy. Everybody loves him. Fantastic. Really, really notable in that respect. And so William had this fantastic reputation for his honesty, his integrity, his manners, his just his general demeanour. And Peter Gartlan was like the gregarious, that bloke that stands out at the party that everyone sees and knows, and he walks around and laughs with everybody, even people he's never met before. And he's that sort of guy who can just be with anyone and feel like, and you think he's been with for 20 years. So it was a really good group like that. And so it was funny because we often would represent the company at different things, because when we're in Hobart and all the suppliers and everyone else, Melbourne and Sydney, and so we often do travel. We'd always go and see all these people all the time because we wanted to make sure that we were top of mind in all these guys. Because in our business, we recognised very early on the three most important parts of the business, right? The customers, the staff, and the suppliers, right? So that were the three, and we decided early on we need to treat all three of those groups the same.
Yep.
You treat your customers the same as you treat your staff, the same as you treat your suppliers. And if you do that, that was another big part of our sort of a big part of our philosophy, if you like, right? That we treat our customers, we treat our suppliers the same as we treat our customers, right? And our suppliers aren't always used to that. They'll think, and this is all part of, we had to make sure our suppliers were happy because they were funding our business. So we were always in touch with our suppliers. We'd always make sure we knew them. We always would take every opportunity to go and catch up with them and sort of make sure they felt comfortable about us. Because the worst thing is when you're not in front of mind for those people was that they look down the list and they go, oh, this Comstra crowd, what are they doing? Oh, their numbers down a bit. And they're like, oh, we'll drop them off. Whereas if they look at it and go, oh, that's William. I know William. He's fantastic. Well, that's Peter. I know Peter. And they'll just go, oh, no, we're not going to drop them off. I'll just give them a call. Hey, Peter, how you going? Blah, blah. And it's always good. And the other trick with suppliers, which I learned early on as well, which some of my staff didn't always follow, was don't just ring your suppliers with bad news, right? Or don't ring up complaining to your suppliers all the time. Ring up with good. If you ring up and say, where's that stock I ordered, blah, blah, why haven't you guys got it? Or this thing doesn't work. How come you guys haven't fixed this, blah, blah. And all they...
Training.
That's right. So if all they ever get from you is, when you ring them, is complaints, they're not going to be very happy to answer the phone. So if you ring up and say, hey, we won that deal. Thanks, guys. You did a great job for us on that one. Thanks very much. Or, hey, thanks for that great price you gave us because that got us through. And, hey, you guys are fantastic because your supply so fast and all your service reps are great. And they go, wow, these guys actually treat us nicely. So they know when you ring them, you're not going to be ringing up necessarily, bringing up to tell them what a good job they're doing. Makes a big difference, right?
It's really clever, Peter, on a few fronts, what you've just said there, both talking positively to them, but also going and seeing them in person and building that rapport and that relationship, which I assume, well, I've been in the tech industry for the first 12 years of my business career, and one of my degrees is computing. So I know that nerds often are introverted and don't like talking to people. So that would make you stand out even more when you go and proactively do that.
That's right. And they appreciate it as well, right? Now, we would go over it. They often had marketing funds. They'll pay for us to go over, and they often had events and stuff on. But we would also proactively just go over and see them, say, we're coming to Melbourne, we'll come and see you guys. They really appreciate it, right? They really appreciate it. And that would put us top of mind for those guys. And that would mean when we said, oh, look, we've got this deal coming through, we need to extend our credit limit by, $1 million, right? And this is in the IT industry where there's businesses falling over left, right, and centre. And they're going to their CFO saying, oh, we need to come through another, they've got $1 million, we need to give them another $1 million. That's what the CFO's going to tell them, what the hell? So we had to, so they need to have real confidence that we're actually, that we were the real deal. So, mate, I'm jumping around here.
That's right. I got a few questions just going back. When you bought into William's business and booted that other guy out who was mainly retail, did you shut retail down?
Basically. They sort of did a bit. He went off and set up a shop, right. which ironically is still going. So, but no, we weren't interested in doing shop front. We only do business and corporate. Yeah. So all outbound.
Second question. I think you're going somewhere with this. The other compact, smaller supplier on that panel. What happened with them?
So we were doing compact. Oh, that's right. I was doing that. So the other supplier on the panel was when we went to see all our old customers, they said, "Good luck, guys." They said, "But sleeves are still here, so we don't need to deal with you because we've still got them and all our contracts are with them and everything else. So when the time comes, maybe we'll see how you go in a year or two." So we thought, okay, we're not going anywhere with these guys. They all think sleeves is great. So we thought we'll go after the other compact suppliers or the other compact retailers business, who people weren't so happy with, we knew. So we targeted the other company. We didn't target the company we just come from. We targeted the other company because we could go and see those guys and say, hey, there might have been a reason, and this happens with businesses, right? There's lots of agendas within some corporates and government about dealing with a particular supplier. Sometimes they don't want to deal with just one supplier because it looks bad, right? Or they want a bit of protection. So they'll go in and go, we've got this primary guy, but we also want this guy as well, because they're buying, they're buying hundreds of computers a year at this stage with these guys, hundreds of computers or whatever, and they want to make sure they're hedging their bets a bit. If that guy goes down the tubes, we don't want to have just one. We need to have others. So a lot of these customers had dual supplier relationships. So we would go into this other guys, the other people's business, the other people's customers, and say, hey, how about us instead of them? And so a lot of them did change. So they go, oh, good. Now we've got two. So we needed to have someone. And so we had them because we needed someone else. And now we can use you guys. Right. So we became the secondary supplier. Brilliant. Now we're in. Right. Now we can go and see them. Now we can say we're on your list. Now you're allowed to buy from us. And all we had to do was do a better job than the other guys. Right. Do a better job than them. And that was something we always thought was interesting. So we keep thinking, we keep picking up business. So we picked up business out of those guys. And then there are other people who, because I remember I said we dealt with IBM in this smaller business that we joined up with. Now, we didn't have IBM in the other one, but this other supplier also did IBM. So they were doing IBM Compact. So there were a lot of people who were buying IBM stuff from that supplier who didn't really like them, but they didn't want to deal with this other mob that we were in because it was too small and too risky. So now when we turned up, they go, oh, these are the guys from Sleeps. Oh, these guys are right. So we basically started targeting our business, the businesses that weren't dealing with the one that we were in before. Yeah. And that was a really successful strategy. In fact, we drove those other people nuts. Eventually, they went down the tubes. So we got a lot of business that way. And that helped us build up our cred. Yep. And that helped us build up our business to the point where eventually those other customers who had said to us, good luck, then started saying to us, hey, here's some business. Yep.
So my final question there is, what happened to Alan's business, the one that you left originally?
Well, it was interesting to watch because they did all right. They carried a lot of momentum for a while. They went on all right for a while, and then Alan was looking for getting out, and we were probably his best prospect. And eventually, this was a really funny joke for the business because he sold. So the two businesses was Sleeves. There was our business, Comstra, and this other one was Computerland. It was a local Computerland business. He ended up selling his business to the Computerland guy.
Yeah.
Right? So that was the business that we'd been targeting. So we'd been taking business off Computerland left, right, and centre. Sleep was sort of diminishing slightly because they didn't have any momentum. They lost their momentum because we were out there doing most of the sales, and they didn't really have any sort of replacement salespeople for that. So they lost momentum. So Sleep started drifting down and Computerland started drifting down too. So the Computerland said to the Sleeps guy, hey, let's get together. And Sleeps guy said, yeah, no worries. You just buy me and I'll be right, mate. I'll go. So he thought, great. So he joined up and they bought that. And we thought, that's fantastic because the people who didn't want to deal with Computerland were a lot of the people that were dealing with Sleeps.
Yeah.
So those people left. So when Computerland bought Sleeves, that became Computerland. So all those people at Sleeves was going, we don't want to deal with Computerland. That's what we're doing with Sleeves. And now we're going to deal with Comstra.
So you got more business. Yeah.
You got more business. Mm-hmm. So it was both of those businesses afterwards had said to us, why don't you buy us? Right? Yep. They said to Comstra, why don't you buy us? And we always said, this is actually interesting. We said, why would we buy you? Right? We always said, what are we buying? Right? Yep. What are we buying? We've got all the ingredients of your businesses. What are we buying? Why are we giving you money when all we have to do is just hang around, probably? Yep. And by you saying, why don't you buy us? We had a few of the local competitors saying, why don't you buy us? Well, basically, they're saying, we're not interested in doing this anymore. So we didn't have quite happy with that. Let someone else buy it. In fact, one of our staff eventually bought that Computerland business. He left us and said, I'm going to buy Computerland. I'm going over there. And said, off he went. And eventually he went down the tubes.
Yep.
Tough business.
What year in 1996 when you started? How old were you then?
I was 32.
32.
Yeah. So pretty young. The other two guys in the business, Peter and William, they were about 10 years older than me.
Yep. And other businesses after that? You started something else?
Oh, right. Yeah. So we were doing quite well with Comstra. We built up Comstra over the next 4 or 5 years, and we eventually became the largest provider on that contract. So we moved from the small, we basically bought cheapest house in the street, right? And built it up to become, so we took over, Sloops went and Vichley Computerland went, so we ended up becoming the largest supplier in there. And we thought, okay, this is good. Now, what other things can we do? Well, how can we diversify? Now, we had really good strength in this business. We had a great name in it. We had all this stuff. And so we thought, what else could we do? And we thought, well, this is all basically hardware, technology, services. What about software? So one of our customers who was working in a business which wanted to get rid of their IT department, he eventually they outsourced it to him, who built a new business. And he said, he wanted to build a new business out of this. So their whole IT group with this one big corporate was going to move out and become another business. Well, they wanted to get rid of it. So we said, well, we'll use that as a staging point to set up a new business. So we partnered with that guy. So it was 4 of us in that business, and he established and ran this new operation, which was a software operation. So that was, then we had the cred from our business, right? So we had a bit of name around the place. So he had cred from that straight away, and we had funding to back it as well, because we were going quite well with their cash flow and things. And then they could start up and get going. Now that was interesting, because that guy came out of a corporate background. He didn't have a sales background. He was an IT manager in a corporate business. He set up this business. He could run the IT group, no worries. He brought a lot of the IT guys with him. Out of the few more in there, we got a sales guy and things like that, and he ran that business for a bit. And we thought, we'll see how this goes. And so we were just Neds in there. We were non-executive. We just had our meetings. But what turned out was quite interesting. When we started off a very low base, knowing what we were getting into, and with no money. And we didn't pay ourselves early on. Well, we had very low, and eventually when we did start paying ourselves, we had enough cash flow for it. We just paid ourselves very minimal salaries. This guy came in and he said, right, I'm the CEO of an IT business, and I used to be the IT manager in a corporate one, so I want to be paid this. Right? So straight away, he's expecting that much out of the business, which is coming from nowhere, because we haven't got any customers really. He's got one customer, got to build it up, and he says, I need these people, so they're going to cost this, this, and this, and then we'll be right. We'll see how we go. And so we looked at each other. Now, we had a good business which was running well, and so we were his partners. And so he sort of felt, I'm on a level with you guys straight away. Now, we felt this guy actually hasn't gone through the necessary pain.
Yes. Yeah.
This guy hasn't had enough sleepless nights to actually to be in the situation where he should be paying himself at the current valuation of his expectations. And he's got a business which actually hasn't got any major revenues yet. So we just said, okay. So we kept doing. Then it was like, okay, we need some more cash, which is obvious. They need more cash. So we were basically funding this cash flow into his business. So we were just burning cash, and we were just making loans out of our business into that business. And eventually we said, well, how long is this going to keep going? And we'd been doing this for a year and a half, and we hadn't seen a turnaround in the business yet. And we hadn't really seen the guy give us a really good appreciation that he knew how it was going to turn around. He was happy just to run this business and have the credit of being a bloke who ran. There were 20 employees in this business by this stage. It was getting large. And they did have some view. They had some business happening and stuff, but it was, it was picking up slowly. It was obviously going to be some time before it came really profitable and cash flow positive to fund itself. So we just basically said, I think we're going to turn the tap off here, because we didn't see how he was otherwise going to work out how to do it on his own. It was just a bit easy having someone funding it. So that business was disappointing. And so we eventually did pull the pin on that business, and we put it into administration.
Wow. Right.
And we said, no, we're not going to keep going. We're going to go into administration. And because we felt this is just going to become a drain on our good business, and we can't see an end to this. And we think that this business is not going to be successful with the 4 of us. It might be successful with him on his own.
Yeah.
Once he works out how to make it successful. But at the moment with the 4 of us, it's just too easy for him.
Yeah.
And so we just felt we didn't think we were getting enough value, and we didn't have the time or the ability to be able to put much time and effort into that business. So we put in administration. The administrator came in. He said, geez, you guys put this into administration early. I'm going to get my money out of this really easily, which is all administrators want to do, right? They just want to be able to get the money that they've got to pay themselves. That comes out first. which I learned a lot about administration in that situation. And it was interesting. And we eventually had to buy our way out of that business because there were a lot of staff that needed closing a business down is expensive. Bloody hell. I didn't realise how expensive it was. We had to pay off leases. We had to pay off staff entitlements. We had to pay off all this other stuff. There's a lot of money that's going to close a business down. But we did that, and we did it because we felt, and eventually, like the three of us actually probably paid a disproportionate amount of our value into that, or our cost into that, because we felt we've got to maintain our reputation because everyone knows it's just part of our business. Yep. So we did that, and eventually, anyway, so the administrator sells the business to the other guy. And that business is still going.
Oh, there you go. Is it software development or just selling?
Software. It was software development, and it was accounting, software sales, and stuff like that. So it was basically software development. Yeah. And in fact, ironically, the story is even better because afterwards we all got on good terms. It was all like, well, you know, we were lucky enough that this wasn't going to kill us. It was going to be a bit of a learning exercise for us, definitely, or the expensive learning exercise, definitely, because something we couldn't have done 5 years earlier, probably, but we were able to get away with it at that stage. And we thought, and this is another thing which is interesting, another interesting point, which I always think about with telling people about business, is that you've got to, the people who want to build a business or do well in a business are the sort of people they don't want to die wondering, right? You sort of think, oh, maybe we could start this other business up. And you think, oh, would I? It's the same as when I was that 23-year-old techo at, IT tech, thinking maybe I could do sales, right? And it's the sort of thing we didn't want to die wondering. Maybe we could have set up another business. It might have been really successful. It might have gone really well. So we gave it a crack, right? And so that's the sort of thing you've got to be prepared. I know this is sort of negative to successful businesses and all sorts of stuff, but you've got to be prepared for failure as well. You know, it might not work out, and you've got to know what failure looks like. And that's what, in that business, we thought, this is not going to win. We've got to get out of this. It's a fast fail situation.
I use this saying sometimes, success is a poor teacher. If you knocked it out of the park with the first business, doesn't mean you're going to knock it out of the park with the second one. That's
right. Well, I mean, I know stories of some of the venture capitalists who say they don't want someone who's already who hasn't had a failed business, you know. Yeah. And there's actually a couple of very good stories locally about guys who've bought the relics of their failed businesses and done really successfully. This was one, right? Because he just needed to be motivated to do it himself. Mm. And then all the things that we talked about happened immediately. He cut his staff numbers right down. He stopped paying himself. You know, he focused on sales, all that stuff, which he should have been doing when we were with him, but he didn't. And I've got another business as well, luckily in Hobart, which had a similar situation. And he had the situation where he had 3 or 4 partners and they didn't have the same risk profile. They didn't have the same work ethic. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. And they were in a business together. That business eventually failed. And that one guy bought it out and he's now made that a successful business.
And the software company started up with this guy. What year did you go into venture with him?
I think that was about 2002. Yeah. I think 2001, 2002. Because as everyone knows, whether it's fantasy or fact, the Y2K bug was absolute goldmine. Yes. So Y2K, that brought forward like 2 years, 3 years worth of sales, because these businesses generally do refreshes of their technology every 2 or 3 years. So that was a lot of what our business was based on, was repeat sort of refresh effort from businesses and government agencies. And so when Y2K came forward, the ones who were doing it that year did it, and the ones who were doing it the next 2 years also did it. So they all brought forward. So it's great.
Right. Any other key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth?
So we started about $2 million when we joined up with Peter.
Yep.
By the end of our 10 years, 12 years, we were up to $35 million a year.
Holy shit.
We had a big business running. It was really good. And so that was a steady growth. You know, we went through 10 in about three years. We got through 15, 20, 30, and up to, so we peaked at about 35 million. And even our suppliers couldn't believe it. They said they didn't know there was that much business in Tassie. Yeah. So they were very, very happy with us. Now, this is the other thing, which I just want to touch on, because I mentioned it before, is suppliers funding your business, right? So our big issue was the bank manager, you had a question about how did we know when we'd succeeded. Are we going to talk about that soon?
In a minute, yeah. We'll ask them.
Okay. Anyway, so when we said to the bank manager, we wanted more money, and he said, no, I'm going to give you less money. We said, okay, well, so I'm not getting money out of the bank. We have to get somewhere else. So we went to our suppliers and said, okay, guys, we reckon we're going to do really well here. We need you to give us a bit of faith. We need you to help us, give us some lines of credit, and we're not going to be able to pay you. But we had two big pluses in our favour in terms of our credit lines. We had reliable payers, right? Because a lot of our business was government. And that was something which I don't know how you can sort of, I don't know any other way that you can say that you can sort of manufacture that sort of thing. But we had very reliable payers. We could always say, yes, we know we're getting $1 million worth of stock from you, but we're selling to the government. The government always pay. They don't always. Something could go wrong, and it could be real slow, but they do always pay, right? They're not going to go broke. And that's a big risk for the suppliers, that we're selling to someone a business that goes bust and they end up with nothing. So that was a big problem. The second big thing we did, and this is what Peter Gartlan, our CFO's one of his strongest points was, he always keeps talking to suppliers about the funds, about the cash flow, right? He kept talking to suppliers. And he said it's just so easy sometimes that people don't realise. The supplier will ring up. Okay, so you've got this $1 million that you've got in gear, and you've got it on credit, and you've had to beg and borrow from the supplier to give it to you. And someone nice upstairs who we probably had lunch with last week in Sydney, in the top shelf in the C level somewhere in that business, who said, "Oh yeah, I know those guys. Yeah, they can have $1 million extra." And we've said, and we've sold this stuff to the government, and the government's gone, and something's happened, right? And so the money's not going to come through on that. In that 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months, whatever we expected. Peter Gartlan, as soon as he knew that, he was on the phone to the supplier, right, to say, guys, this payment is not coming in a month. It's going to come in 8 weeks, right? And the supplier, it was amazing how valuable that was, right? So the supplier would go, if we waited until 4 weeks and said, oh, the money's not coming for another 4 weeks, they're going to pull their hair out. Yeah. They're going to, bloody hell, I've got in my numbers. I've told my boss this is supposed to happen. We've got it in our books. How are you going to? You can't say another week for another minute for this $1 million. I've done 4 weeks for this $1 million. But Peter Gartlan would ring him. He'd say, no, it's not coming on that day. It's coming on this day. And they go, oh, okay. And then it would come on that day, right? Yeah. It would always come on that day. So you didn't have to worry about when Peter Gartlan said this is what's going to happen. They could go back to their bosses and they could say, Peter Gartlan said it's going to be paid. Peter always pays when he says, right? It's going to be late, but it's going to be this day. Yeah. So the big temptation with cash flow management in the business, small business particularly, is juggling your suppliers, right? You're going, oh, this guy's complaining the most, so I'm going to pay him first. And then this guy starts complaining more, so I'm going to pay him. And you go on credit hold, which is a real nuisance because you've got to lie to your customers about the fact the stock isn't coming and it's because you haven't got any credit from them, so the suppliers aren't shipping to you. But Peter would always make sure he would call early, and he would tell them the truth. And that was so valuable. So our suppliers, they loved us because we never caused them problems with the credit. So they would just keep giving us more and more credit as a result of the fact that they knew that we were reliable. Even if we didn't pay when we went on the time, they knew if we said it was going to, and we didn't give the money for that stuff to that supplier and give the money for that stuff to the other supplier who shouldn't have given to that one. He was really sensible about that. So we ended up with we probably had, we were probably doing 35 mil. That's on some months we were doing 3 or 4 mil a month, right? Now that's basically pretty much all on our suppliers. Right? Wow. So we had $3 million cash credit cards with our suppliers. Yep. So those suppliers had to try. In one of our suppliers, that's right, the first big one. This is funny. The first big one, Compact. So when we said we want an account, I said, yeah, no worries. All you got to do is, create a line of credit. And their smallest line of credit was like $2 million, right? So this is a business where we're doing $2 million a year at the time. How are we going to give them $2 million? So we sort of wheeled and dealed and said, no, we can't do that much. I said, all right. They went down. I came down to 600,000. I said, oh, okay, I'll give you 600,000. All you got to do is give us a bank guarantee, right? Bank guarantee. I thought, what's a bank guarantee?
Anyway, 600 grand.
Of 600 grand.
Oh, Jesus.
So I said, that's fine. This is at a business that was turning over, I don't know what, a few hundred K a month or something. 600 grand. None of us had 600 grand. I said, that's right. Just sign over your house, right? Just sign over your house. Now, bank guarantees, I didn't realise this was bank guarantees. Bank guarantee means your supplier doesn't even have to tell you. They can go to the bank and say, give me that money, right? So then the bank comes to you and say, hey, guys, you got to sell your house.
Yes. That's so you had to do that? You had to put the bank
We had to do that. We had to give them a bank guarantee. That was the only way we would get the credit out of this company. The only way we're going to get this last tick we needed. So we did that. But the interesting thing is, when we sold the business 12 years later, our line of credit with that business was $4 million.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
And we still only had a $600,000 bank guarantee.
Wow.
And then when we sold the business, that company looked at it and goes, holy shit, you guys have only got $600K of credit, of security on this $4 million line of credit. What the hell? They had a huge, that was like panic station to those guys. The CFOs look at that going, geez, if my CEO finds out about this, I'm in the shit. But we were such good payers and so reliable and so sensible that they just kept giving us more and more credit. And we ended up getting, and that was huge. So our working capital, so we're turning over $3 million a year or something. Our working capital, we had also had good working capital. Another important thing, a lot of the businesses that we competed with had very poor working capital management. So they would just drag every cent out of the business that they made straight away, right? Now we left $1-2 million in working capital in the business to make sure that we never got into that cash flow situation. Now, a lot of people say that's no good because that just makes your accounts payable, your accounts receivables lazy because they don't need the money, right? So they don't need the money to come into the business because we've got all this money in the bank. So it makes people say, oh, but that's going to just make our bloody accounts receivable buddies lazy. Well, they're going to worry about having to worry. They don't have to need the money. No, we had two accounts. We had the number one account, the number two account, right? So they only saw the number one account.
Yeah.
And they didn't have access to the number two account. So we made sure that they go, oh, shit, we need this money for this month because we need this money to pay these suppliers this month. But we had reserves. We always made sure that we had enough money to pay our suppliers and we didn't take it out of the business. Now, when we left that business, they changed that working capital balance. And that was a big problem after we left the business.
Right.
And it was a big problem with a lot of our suppliers. So that was really important. Keeping your suppliers happy. Yep.
How many full-time equivalent team members did you start with and where did you get to when you sold?
When we started, we had about six or eight, I think. So there was the three of us, an accountant, a store guy, and a couple of techos. What's that? That's eight. When we finished, we had about four. I think we got up to about 50. So we had lots and lots of people running all parts of the business. And it was just necessary for the business. And that was growing the business, putting people on was always a bit of a question mark, but we just had to recognise we always did it a bit before we really had to, right? We always do it a bit before we really had to. We had to have the confidence that we'd actually create enough business in the future to fund that, because there's always a step change, right? You put another staff member on and you take a big hit to the bottom line and your payroll adds up quickly. But we'd always do it slightly before, giving and be confident that if we look after people properly, we will build this business up and we'll pay for these guys. And we also needed to make sure in IT, people need things fixed fast. So it was often putting on techos and things like that.
Yeah.
To make sure we didn't have big delays in getting things done. Yep.
All right, Peter, that's the first 4 questions. We better crack on. I'm sure we could talk for a couple hours, I reckon. But the problem with that problem with that is we don't have a beer in our hand. So I'm going to try and fast track these last few questions.
What's the problem?
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Very clear. When we went round to our customers, we got the first big deal off one of our government agencies. I remember what it was. We got a deal for 120 grand or something off, which was a big deal for us at that time. And we took that, and William said, "This is great. We got this order." He said, "We're going to go and see the bank manager." So we took the order down. But we said, "You know how we told you you're going to build business? Look, here's an order from the government for 120,000." And the bank manager was impressed. That was great. That was our first big win. Yeah.
What does success look like to you?
Well, from that business's point of view, it was being in a business where you felt confident that that you could continue to meet your payroll each month and have some left over, right? Because for all businesses, it's all about your payroll, right? You got to pay your staff, and getting your payroll each month is a lot of money to find every month. That's got to be on top of all the other money that goes through the business. So payroll plus a bit, mate. Success was having a good monthly figure which showed a decent profit for the business with confidence that we could maintain it. Yep.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business? I mean, you guys grew like no tomorrow over 12 years to 35 million from a less than 2 million base. Yep.
I think just look after your customers, right? Look after your customers. We're just amazed at how many of our customers just go, "You guys are great." We say, "How come you deal with this all the time?" Because you do what you say you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And everyone hates the bloody plumber and the electrician because they ring up and say, I'll be there tomorrow, and they're not there tomorrow, and they don't ring you and they don't tell you they're not going to be. So we drummed into all our staff, right? You always make sure you ring the customer first, right? Same with make sure you ring the supplier first, right? Always do. It's like, do unto others, mate. Basically. Just do the right thing by people. It was so easy. We kept thinking, how come other people don't do this? And people don't.
Well, I think we've covered off funding. Nothing else on that. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Well, the industry's changed quite a bit, and that was part of the reason we got out of it. Or part of the reason I got out of it. It had enough funding. I think. Look, I don't know. If I was back there again, I definitely would have done what I did then.
Yeah,
I definitely would have gone into that business again. That was again. It was one of those leap of faith things. I said, you've got to try this. If you don't try it, you'll always think I should have tried it. And those were the 3 steps that we went through to do that. So the first one was, going into sales. That was the first. Got to try it. Worked. The next one was starting our own business or going to our own business. That was a big leap of faith as well. Yep, tried it. Yep, did it. Next one was starting another business. Needed to find out. Tried it. Failed. Forget it. Move on. So would I do it again? Yeah, I would in the same circumstances.
Yeah.
In this business at this time, the competition. I've been out of the business for a while, so I don't really know. But I'd go into a different business now. Business. Yeah.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Oh, first 6 months. Oh, gee. I just had in fact, we moved into that business in February 1996. My first child was born in May 1996.
Yep.
I'm lying in bed at home with a baby in the home. My wife lying on the side of me. I'm thinking, should I tell her we're not actually paying ourselves at the moment?
No, do not.
So that was pretty stressful. So after the first 12, and I remember saying to one of my partners, is this going to go all right? He said, mate, don't worry. This is all expected. He said, don't worry. This is all fine. We're going to get there. Don't worry. It's all, there's enough good stuff to be working on. Don't worry about day one. Just keep going. So that was very stressful, first 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And the other stressful part was the last 6 to 12 months, selling the business. That was hugely stressful.
Yeah. Who bought the business? Someone locally or mainland?
No, mainland operation. It was, but that's another hour worth of talking to tell you about selling the business. That was really.
Yeah, well, that's the second last question before we hit the. Well, it's the last question before we hit the final 5 about it. We'll talk about exits right at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's keep going here. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I think the idea with our business, and I think every business is the same in the end of the day. We're a customer service business, right? So we had to make sure that our people treated our customers properly. And we had an IT business, and IT guys aren't known as the world's most fabulous communicators, right?
No.
So we focus very much on making sure that our IT people, sales are important, but there's a particular sort of person for sales, and we had good salespeople. We had really good salespeople, and that's really important, obviously. But with us, it was basically about the after-sales service. We had to maintain a reputation of not only providing good stuff, but actually being able to keep looking after people in the longer term. So we were very much keen on making sure that all our outbound techos and all our support staff and all our other people treated our customers properly. And so we focused a lot on that. And interestingly with that, so we had all these techos because we're doing installations and we're doing upgrades and we're doing all this stuff with all these people hands and feet out on the ground looking after our customers everywhere. And they're all blokes, right? They're all blokes. All these IT guys are all blokes. No, we never had a female techo, but we had a help desk and service managers who looked after all those techos. They were all women, right? Because women are organised. Women are organised, and women can multitask, so they can have someone ringing saying I need this done, and they have someone else saying where's this guy, and they have someone else saying, and they can manage that. The guys all over the shop, right? So the girls would at the start of the day it'd be you're going here, why aren't you back yet, where's he, what's happened to that? That was so good. So that was a big part too. That's an anecdote. It's interesting, but we never had any female service desk managers, and we never had any male techos.
Yeah,
so other way around.
Yeah, I know what you meant. What have you enjoyed least about managing fast growth?
There's the worry. I guess the worry about a deal going south And when you've got big deals, it only takes one big deal to go south big time, and it makes a big hit to the business. Now, we had 12 profitable years. We were really lucky, right? We never had an unprofitable year.
Because did you sell just before the GFC hit or around that time?
Just before.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's a whole story, you see. Yeah. So we sold the business in 2006.
Right.
Yeah, 2006. And Lehman Brothers maybe it was 2007. Lehman Brothers like October 2007 or something. Anyway, it was.
No, I think it was 2008, wasn't it?
2008, everything plunged.
Oh, okay, yeah, got it.
But Lehman Brothers was earlier on. Anyway, so yes, we sold, but no, I think, what was the question?
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Yeah, I think just all the stress associated with a big deal going south. Because one big deal, when it's a multi-million-dollar deal, when you've got a payroll of 600 grand, all that stuff, it doesn't. You just realise how fragile a business actually is. And one small story again. Sorry, mate, I'm dragging the time out.
You're right.
I remember having a chat. Because we deal with the government a lot, and I was involved in sort of industry bodies and stuff like that in Hobart as well. So we'd sort of go on government advisory boards and these sort of things, just making sure that they were doing things properly. And the government had no idea. And this is a good example. I remember going to one function once, and I'm talking to one of those government advisors, and he's sort of talking about the business. I'm saying, "Oh yeah, we've got to work in business. Oh, it's hard work, and we've got to keep it all going." And he says, "But it's going all right." And he says, "I don't know why you keep working the business. Why don't you just put a manager in, and let the manager do it?" And I just looked at him. I said, "Mate, you've got no idea. You've got no idea." And I thought, these are the people who are advising the government on how to look after the small businesses. And I just think, a manager, mate, you got no idea. You can't just put a manager in charge of a business that's turning over $4 million. And I know of actually people who've done that. There's one particular case of one of our competitors who did that, and they went bust within 6 months.
Wow, jeez.
Because it's just too easy. Yeah.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I think building the camaraderie. I think the best thing about it really was for the three of us just enjoying the ride, right? Enjoying the ride and doing it well, and getting the wins. On the way up, you're getting the wins was great because you have no expectation, and you get to win a big deal. Like one deal, I think I won a deal with the Department of Health or someone, and it was $2.5 million or something like that. And it's like that's a big deal in Tassie. You go, wow, this is so good, right? So that's the sales buzz. That's the standard sales buzz. But you sort of felt like you were doing it for everybody, and everyone enjoyed the success in those times. So yeah, winning deals is great. Yeah.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Well, it's a funny question, because if there was a big mindset, it makes it sound like I had the wrong reasons to go into it in the first place. But I think the biggest, I don't know about mindset change, but biggest eye opener, I guess, was how, I think I mentioned it before, just looking after people, just doing the right thing by people is a success strategy. If stuff goes wrong, you ring them and tell them it's gone wrong, right? If stuff isn't going to happen how it's supposed to happen, you ring and apologise and say, "Sorry, it didn't happen." That's what you'd like them to do to you. You don't need people to lie to you. Mindset change. Mate, I don't know. I don't think I had a big mindset change in the way that we ran our business. I think we just focused on doing it the way that we thought it should be done, and we did that all the way to the end. Yeah.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think it's staying on the ball, being focused all the time. You don't really have to tell a small business owner to stay on the ball, right? Because everyone knows I can't just walk away. I've got to keep, but you've got to focus on every detail. You need to look after every detail. I think if there was my big message to people is that trio of important groups. Look after your staff the same way you look after your customers, the same way you look after your suppliers. I think if you treat them all the same way, you treat them all basically as customers, right? Your staff look after you. You need to make sure they're happy. Your customers, obviously, you need to make sure, and your suppliers. I think that's the biggest thing, really. Just look after your suppliers and your customers and your staff the same way.
Be the change you want to see in your business. Become more productive and less stressed with our free Transform Your Performance online course. Once you see the benefits, put your entire team through the course at no cost. We start out by telling you the secret to guaranteed success, then over 100 lessons help you be more focused, present, productive, and feel more in control about work. growasmallbusiness.com.
Now, you got up to around 50 team members. Perfect question for you. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
We mostly added people to the team by saying to them, who else might want to work here? Right? That's a standard practice now. Lots of businesses give ransoms to people to bring someone on. I know a lot of corporates, a lot of the big Americans certainly say, we'll give you $5,000 if you invite someone in who turns out to be good, that sort of thing. So we would often just approach people who we thought were good, who were customers, we'd steal customers, people. And we would say to our staff, who might be good? That's how we picked up probably our first half a dozen people in the business, which just came through references from our staff. People they knew were good, people they thought they'd be able to work with. So we pick them up that way. Otherwise, we just use the standard things. We didn't use headhunters very often. We pretty much did it by word of mouth.
Yeah.
So we would just find people who we knew about or ask people who might be good, and it was good because in the early days, in the first 5 years or so, we were the new kid on the block, and we were the growing fast business. And so people wanted to come work for us, and we gave our staff lots of training, right? That was the other thing. Lots of companies don't do training for their staff. Now, we would say, you come on here, we want you to be at this level. We're going to give you this and this and this. So you're going to have to go to Melbourne to do this and go to Sydney to do that. Is that all right with you? And they go, oh, yeah, sure. No worries. Yeah. So we'd give our people training and we'd invest in them. And that was something which most of our competitors weren't doing.
Yeah, that's something more valued by employees.
And employees like that, because I often say we need to give the techos an incentive. We'll give them an incentive program. We'll give them a commission if they bring in something or other. It doesn't work with them. They're not interested. Right? No. They're not interested in that stuff. So, which I just couldn't believe as a salesman. I couldn't believe they weren't interested in getting more money, but they weren't really worried about that. They were interested in interesting work. Just a little anecdote about our staff. We had a guy come work for us once. A couple of people didn't work out. We had this little ploy that we'd use with people who weren't working out. Actually, I've got two good stories here. One of them was this guy. He was a lazy, slack guy. He was a mate of one of the guys who worked there, and he came in and he was reasonably technically illiterate and stuff, which is most important. So he knows someone's not going to be able to, we're not going to break things, they're going to fix things. And he said, but he was a bit lazy and slow, just a bit too, selfish. And anyway, eventually we just sort of said to him, you're not pulling your weight, mate. You're going to have to go. And he said, oh, yeah. And he just about agreed with us, right? So we sacked him. And then a few years later, we were looking for someone else, and this guy's name came up again. And this mate of his saying, "Oh no, he's different now. He's all different now. Yeah, he's much better now." And so the three of us talked about it. Me, William, and Peter talked about it. This other guy wanted to come back and work for us. He said, "Oh, he's changed. Apparently, he's supposed to be good now." Yeah, all right. It's hard to get people. So I said, "I don't think he's going to be any good." So anyway, he turned up, and the other guy said, "Oh no, he's changed." He turned up. Anyway, we sacked him again 6 months later.
No. Yeah.
He hadn't changed. People, that's another big lesson I learned. People don't change, right? No. People don't change. And that's a key thing. So when you work out what someone's like or how someone is, that's the way they are. They don't change. The other good story was we had people, for our guys now, the big thing with our business was when we first started was mobile phones. In the olden days, back in the 90s, late 90s and stuff, mobile phones were expensive. You had to pay a lot each month and calls were expensive and all that sort of stuff. So it was a big plus for our guys that they actually got a mobile phone paid for by the company. And we would just give it to them and say, there you go, guys, off you go. That was a big attraction for working in our company. And everyone else did it too, but it was sort of not of the customers didn't do this with their staff. And so we'd say, we trust you. So we just scan the bills each month and just run by exception. Anyway, this guy kept running up. Most people are running $50 a month bills. This guy's running $150. Wow. He's a young guy. He's a young guy. He's like 19, 20-year-old guy or something. So we call him in. Now, our practice with people, when we didn't sack many people, we did sack a couple. But what we would do with these guys, different parts of the business, we did differently. But these guys, we'd say, right, we didn't have timesheets for our staff. We probably should have a bit more, but we didn't have timesheets. But when we said someone's on someone's sort of on their first warning sort of thing, we'd say, oh, okay, now, Michael, we're a bit worried about this. And he'd go, all right. He said, we want you to go on timesheets now, right? So you've got to fill out a timesheet for what you do each day. And this is the mark of Cain for the techos, because all the other guys just come and go. And this guy's got to write down the sheet where he is.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So he sort of goes, oh, oh shit, so he's like, he knows that timesheets are the first thing to get on the way out. So he goes, no, okay, I better pull my socks up. So that guy pulls your socks up. And anyway, that guy is now the Asia Pacific CIO of GHD.
Wow. Yeah. Which is a big Tassie engineering company, isn't it?
Well, it's an international, mate.
But it started in Tasmania, didn't it?
Yeah, it started. I didn't realise it started here. But anyway, he works in Singapore or somewhere now, looks after
right. Wow, there you go.
Yeah. Just another little tip about looking after your team, about managing your staff and things. I mean, one of the big pain in the neck things from the government is they've got this, if you've got to get rid of someone who's no good, I mean, you don't want to get rid of people, right? But when you've got to get rid of someone who's no good, you've got this 3 strikes rubbish, right? Yep. You've got to go, you got to give them a warning, another warning, another warning. And in the meantime, they're just hanging around your business, poisoning the air. Because they're going, these guys are bastards, the business is no good. What are you guys doing here? You should leave with me. They're all a pack of bastards. So we didn't do that. We give them one warning. We put them on timesheets, whatever. One warning. We say, right, you got to pull your socks up or you're out. And then they come in and we go, no, you're out. And then, so they wouldn't poison the culture. We just sack them.
That's good.
And then, but no, this part B is they would come back with their lawyer, the industrial lawyer, and the lawyer would say, hang on, you got to give them this, 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 and this. And we go, how much?
Yeah.
And they go, $3,000. We go, there you go, piss off.
Done. Well, there was a great company, it's still going now, Zappos, online, the shoes mainly. And they had this policy, someone actually mentioned it in the cast the other day, reminded me of it, that a month or so in, they've got a policy where they offer new team members 3 months pay to fuck off.
Oh, right.
So it's pretty enticing. If your heart's not in it, and you're not into the culture of the business, 3 months pay to go and do something else.
Yeah, no, but the biggest problem is having employees poisoning the air. You just don't want it. So if they do that, and even if they're good, and we have nearly sacked one of our top sales reps once, we nearly sacked them because they were just grumpy and carrying on and being nasty. And we nearly sacked them, but they pulled them out. But no, just sack them, get rid of them. And then when they come back with the lawyer, just pay the lawyer, pay them off and say, see you later. That's the best way. Anyway, last bit.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think supporting people and being nice to people. But everyone has to get benefit out of the success. You want everyone to feel part of the business. You want everyone to be congratulated, right? And we did carefully look after saying thanks to people. We really did. We often said we gave people rewards of days off or things here and there or whatever. We trusted our staff, and we were prepared to give them a bit of slack when we thought it was worthwhile. And they worked and they paid back with us. They paid us back by doing the weekends or doing the long hours and stuff like that. They appreciated it. We gave them training. So just have faith and look after your staff and be nice to them. Be nice to your staff. Yeah, that's it.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Well, that was the thing. With the three of us, it was much easier because we could actually be out of the business and not have to worry about the business. So my advice is get 2 fantastic partners, and then you can go away and know that whatever. And our staff often would say to us too. In fact, one of my staff, one of the guys who used to work for us afterwards, I was telling him about how there was the 3 of us, CEO, sales manager, and CFO. And he said, I didn't even realise that you actually had a hierarchy between you. I just thought you were all just on the same level. He said, because we knew if we said it's one thing to one bloke, the other bloke would say, yep, if he said that, that's the way it goes. There was never any.
Right.
So that was, but we had confidence with each other. Whatever decision you make, I'll accept it. Yep.
And how much professional development did you invest in yourself? Obviously would have been shitloads just understanding the technical aspects of what you're selling, but
yeah. So that was technically, but our suppliers taught us all we needed to do. They would always give us training and stuff like that on that sort of thing. So I think that the only real PD we all became members of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. That was actually very valuable. That was a good thing to do. Now we did that in the first couple of years because we got a cheaper insurance rate, and we were looking for every saving we could at that stage. So we thought, we'll sign up for that.
When you did that scare the shit out of you, your responsibilities as a director?
It reinforced them. I think, you sort of
another way to put it.
It is something which is sort of. I sort of felt a bit aware of it. It did scare the shit a bit. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you do get. That's important to get the shit scared out of you in that regard. That you do find out about, the National Safety Council story and all that sort of stuff, where the what is it? The honorary chairman ended up being liable for $80 million worth of stuff.
No, I didn't hear about that.
He was just doing it as a volunteer.
Oh my God, didn't hear about that. Jeez.
Yeah. So that was scary. But that taught us a lot about it. And I have a lot more sort of respect and appreciation of people just because they've done that course, right? Because I know what they know now. And even when I'm on boards and things at the moment, I look for people and I go, look, you really need to do that course because you need to understand what your obligations and stuff are. So that was a good thing. Otherwise, no, mate, we just learned as we went. Yep.
Did you have mentors or coaches along the way?
Not really. No, not really. There was just the three of us who we just used our own knowledge and experience and just built it up. And we did get some. We had some good relationships with our suppliers who were our partners. You know, they call them partners, and they were partners. And we would leverage those experiences by talking to them about what do you think we're doing? How are we doing compared with other businesses, right? Compared with some of your other partners, are we doing good? Are we doing bad? Should there be other things we do? We listen to them from that point of view. That was better. Yeah.
Did you have a board of directors, just the three of you?
Yeah, just three. Three is good, and three is good. Yeah. Three is good. It's a nice, easy number to work with. It's 2 out of 3 most of the time. Occasionally, 1 out of 3. Right? Yeah. Occasionally, we go with a minority decision.
Did anyone chair the board? Anyone chair it?
Nominally William, but you know, we just had a chat. Really, yeah. Yep.
So tell us all about this exit.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the short one. You can come back and do a full-on one-on-one for this later. The quick exit story is after about 10 or 12 years, I always felt like if we're going to get out of this, if those other 2 guys leave the business, I'm going to be stuck here on my own. They're 10 years older than me. I'm going to have to find someone else to work in this business with me. I don't really want to. So I said to them, when you guys go, I'm going to be 1 step behind you. And the other thing I always thought was, and we always said to each other was, this business is going great. We never had any expectations that the business would last forever. We always thought there's a high point and it'll probably won't. It's very hard to reinvent a business, which is what our business really had to do by that stage because the industry was changing. So he said, we should sell the business, right? We're riding high, we're going well, we've got good profits, let's sell the business. So that's what we decided to do. That was my job. So I just basically did the business sale. I just basically rang up all our major competitors from the mainland and said, we're on the market, or would you like to have a look at us? And other people as well, including Telstra and other companies I thought might have interest. I went through about 10 different serious chats with people. We got very close with Telstra, which would have been a really nice win. But unfortunately, you needed 7 signatures with Telstra. This is why it's a good story, because I actually got Telstra's business procurement guidelines, right?
So for the international audience, Telstra is the biggest telecommunications company in Australia. Well, they've got about 70% of the market share or something.
Yeah. Yep. So I actually found a guy who actually was part of their acquisitions team, and I got him to give me their process. So good. Right. That's why the story goes on. Anyway, so we nearly got there with Telstra, but we needed 7 signatures. We got 6. The last signature we needed was Soldier Hillo, who was the CEO of Telstra at the time. He was supposed to sign off it on a board meeting in December of 2006. They cancelled that board meeting, and then in January he announced a new strategy, and the acquisitions team rang us and said, it's all off.
Oh, shit. Missed it by a month.
That's right. So then anyway, 3 months later, one of the guys from the acquisition team rang me again. He said, I've left Telstra. I'm starting a new business up with this other bloke. I'm interested in buying your business. And that was ultimately who we sold it to.
Right.
So they were a business who were looking to setting up a national footprint. We were only in Tasmania. This was the big selling point I had for everybody. We were only in Tasmania, and we were the biggest one in Tasmania. So I was basically selling on the fact that we can bring Tasmanian business for you. And so they wanted to set up a national footprint. We were the Tasmanian business. They came around, had a look. This guy had already been through all of us. He knew about us already. So he was already lined up. He was very happy. He just wanted us to be happy. We did a deal. We were never going to do a deal. We had a few companies that were talking to us about script sales, and we always said, no, we want cash because none of these businesses have got any legs on it, mostly. A couple of them did. And so we did the deal, 18-month workout, 18-month earn-out. One quick thing, they said, okay, this is what we're going to pay you, this much up front, and then this and this. And then when you meet the number you said you'd meet, we pay you this at the end. And we go, okay, that's fair enough. So if we don't get that number, we get paid less. He goes, yeah, that's right. I said, oh, fair enough. So if we exceed that number, we'll get paid more. He goes, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, okay.
And what happened?
We had the best last 6 months in 12 in that 6 months.
That's great.
We got a nice kicker. Yeah. So, and at the end of the 18 months, I always said, I'm leaving at the end of 18 months. The other two said they were going to stay. But the business changed completely. They came in and business changed completely. And it just, they took out all the working capital and they just, didn't really take our advice as much as we would like to. So it was just no fun. So
and what ended up happening with the business?
That it just basically went steadily in decline over the next. It's still going, but it got sold to someone else about 2 years later, and then it's been sold about 3 times, I think, since then into those bigger and bigger conglomerates, and now it's just a small part of a business called 5G.
And out of interest, how did they value? Was it a multiplier on EBITDA? The last 3 years historical EBITDA?
I don't know about the last 3 years, but it was a multiplier. So we were looking for 3 to 5 multiplier was the range that we were working in. And we were 3 to 6, and we were going for 6, and he was going for 3. Of
course.
Anyway, we ended up with about, I think we're in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah, great. No, that sounds right to me. Yeah. Finally, any quick advice for the audience thinking about exiting from your experience?
It's really, really stressful. It's really stressful. Get all your numbers together. Make sure you've got a good story for them. Don't go along and say, hey, would you like to? And then start thinking about, well, what's it mean? You've really got to have a presentation already mapped out. You've got to tell them, and you've got to look at it from their point of view. What is the value? What is the value we are going to add to your business? Don't go to them just saying, oh, we've got a business here making this much money, turning over this much, so that's all going to become yours. No, they want to say, well, what's the growth option, right? Where's the growth? It's like an IPO, right? Yep. They'll go, yeah, okay, so that's where you are now, but where are we going to take this business? Where's it going to go to? They want to know what the growth, what the upside potential is, not just what the current is. They want to know what the upside is. Yep.
All right, Peter, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Hardest thing is, look, I hadn't actually thought about this one much. The hardest thing is getting good staff. The hardest thing is getting good staff. Yep. I mean, we were lucky we did, but the hardest thing is getting good people in the business and keeping them in the business. Yep.
Totally agree. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I haven't read one.
Any great podcast or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
No, not really. I had this when I was working at Sleeves. I kept complaining about no sales training, so he ended up sending me this. I think it was a 30 cassette set of sales training.
Was it Zig Ziglar?
I don't know. I can't remember who it was. It was rubbish. So, yeah. Anyway,
one tool you'd recommend to growing a small business?
Be nice to your suppliers, mate. It's the tool.
No, that can be.
I think that's it. I think that's it. Leverage your suppliers, trust them, keep them up to date. That was the biggest thing we heard all the time was our suppliers saying, "You guys are great. We love dealing with you guys." And the suppliers, the partners, they want you to be successful, right? They want to trust you. You are their outlet to the market. You are the reason that they can go to their boss and say, "These guys are going to do this." So look after your suppliers. Be nice to your suppliers.
Finally, my favourite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out back in 1996?
I looked at this and I thought, I'd tell myself, "Go for it, right? Go for it. Just go for it." And that was, as I said, those big 3 leaps of faith. You've got to think, oh, what if? No. You've got to try it, because what if not? Right? What if not? What if you didn't try it? Right? You'd always be thinking, oh, maybe I could have. So go for it.
Great advice, Peter. Thank you very much for your time today. I've had a lot of fun, got a lot out of it. I could talk for another 3 hours, but only on the condition we've got both drinking beer in the sun somewhere. Which is very
Mate, wine. I'm big on wine. I've got a wine app.
Tell the audience about the wine app. Give that a plug.
The wine app, it's called Wine Radar. So I've got this is my hobby project, this Wine Radar, and it scans all the wine retailer sites on the internet, pulls down all their prices, then it goes and scans all the experts' sites, and it cross matches them and says this cheap wine is actually really good.
Great. What an idea. Love it.
Yep.
Awesome, mate. We'll catch up for a wine sometime soon. Really appreciate it. Congratulations. Tremendous growth over 12 years and success. Under a couple of million, selling out at around 35 million in sales per annum. Congratulations to you, Peter and William. It was tremendous, and the team. Great success.
No worries. Good luck with the edit, mate.
Thanks, mate.
See you later. Nice talking to you.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.